Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, and we are back once again with another speed build. For this speed build, I decided to do a tiny home because I feel like it's been a minute since I did a tiny home because the last couple of builds I've made have been on the bigger side and have taken me several hours to do. So I just wanted to do like a little small home for pretty much just like a one sim. I don't really try to make my homes have space for like at least 2 to 3 Sims, but I figured it's a tiny home that I was trying to go for anyways, so might as well keep it where only one Sim is gonna really be living here. I didn't actually put it as like a tiny home or anything. I didn't change the lot type to a tiny home because I figured it was going to be pointless anyways because I did use a lot of platforms and everything. So that was just going to add to the amount of flooring that I was going to be using. So it wouldn't even still be considered a tiny home. So in reality, it's a tiny home, but in The Sims, it's probably not considered a tiny home. It might be still considered a small home. I'm really not sure, but I knew that since I used a platform for the roofing that I was going to be counting towards the amount of flooring and stuff that I was using. So I just didn't even bother. I wanted it to be a fairly like modern styled home. Especially since obviously the home right next to it kind of has a more modern look to it. So I wanted to keep up with that kind of style. I did struggle a little bit because I don't want every single one of these houses to just be like white concrete or brick situation or like brick and everything. But I feel like the style that I wanted kind of just suited for that. I did eventually, towards the end of the build, add in a little bit more color. I tried to add in a little bit of color too with using the new base game windows that have a little bit of color on the trim. So it has a little bit of that like sagey green color on the trim. And so that's kind of like the color theme that I kind of went with the house in general. Is I went with more of that greeny color, but of course, it being The Sims, not everything and not all of the shades match perfectly. So it probably isn't perfect as far as matching the different green tones, but I think I mainly used Eco Lifestyle and Dream Home Decorator because I felt like those greens worked decently together. If they weren't, they were probably like the closest in color and everything. And I will say once again, I have not limited the packs at all with this build. I kind of was just using whatever. So I used some of the For Rent countertops. I'm pretty sure that for this Jungle Adventure, the stovetop is, I believe, from Mount Komorebi, but don't quote me on that. But I'm pretty sure it is because the last build I did was a Mount Komorebi build, and I'm pretty sure I used that stove. But I just wanted to keep it pretty simple in the kitchen, just like a little section there. I did eventually, I just felt like this looked odd, so I did go and make it a little bit smaller. But I think for this tiny home, honestly, I feel like it was kind of spacious. Even though it was like a smaller home. I feel like I should go back and try and see exactly how many tiles, excluding the roof. And I feel like you shouldn't have to count the porch and like the patios and stuff like that. I feel like those shouldn't count because, you know, they're not, I mean, they're livable. They're livable spaces, but no one's really living there or like doing like much. It's not really contributing to the actual size of the house that much, in my personal opinion. But anyways, I decided to do the table just right by the window. And kind of have it. I was thinking about doing island countertop as the seating there, but then I figured it would be nice to actually have like a proper table and everything. It is a tight fit, obviously. It's like literally right in front of the door. But I think it's okay, especially since it's, you know, a tight squeeze anyways. It's a small house. So, you know, everything's going to be a little bit tight. I will be honest and say that I did not playtest this at all, but I think it should be fine as far as everyone being able to do all of the things that they need to do within the house. And I tried my best to try to make sure that everything was matching as far as like the wood tones and wood colors, like I said earlier. But it is a little difficult because I didn't want to use like all of this. I use a lot of Dream Home Decorator, and I didn't want to just use the same kind of things that I use all the time in my builds. And I really struggled with figuring out a little dresser situation for this room because I just didn't necessarily love the look of that dresser. But then, as you can see, obviously it's a really tight space and there's not that much room. So there wasn't much else I could do besides that dresser that came with Dream Home Decorator. But it's not my favorite. And I wanted this to kind of have a slightly more luxurious look to it. So that was a little bit of a struggle for me too, just finding things that kind of matched that also fit. But I also didn't want it to be super, super expensive. I didn't go into it planning on it having any sort of budget or anything. But I feel like for such a small house, it shouldn't be ridiculously expensive. So I think it's like around 22 or 24 maybe. I don't know exactly the number, but I know that it's not necessarily a starter home price. And for the bathroom, I kept it pretty simple. I did want it to kind of just be like a straight line as like sink, toilet, shower, but obviously a lot of the showers are angled in that one particular way where I had to kind of just do the shower and the toilet next to each other and then the sink on the other side, which is annoying. I wish we could kind of just put the shower wherever and that they would still be able to use it, but I just gave in to what the game restricted me with. And I wanted to go for a darker theme in the shower because I feel like I typically do the same exact thing for my bathroom. So I just wanted to do something a little bit different. And for the back patio, I also was trying to do something a little bit different instead of just putting like a table and everything, especially because it's also like a pretty small space. So I didn't want it to be super big anyways. So I was originally gonna just do those chairs and like have a little table, but I could not find a table that looked decent with those chairs. I just didn't find anything that I at least thought looked well, because I think like the white table right there looked okay, but I felt like it needed to have like a round table, and I couldn't find a round table that like looked good with it. I don't know. And so I do eventually go back and change that because I just wasn't loving it. But for right now, I just was kind of changing the lighting and everything, which is another area that I kind of struggled with because I wanted it to kind of have that. I said I wanted it to be kind of luxurious, but also obviously with a green, I wanted it to be a little bit like, I guess, organic or natural looking as well, I guess is the right word of way of phrasing it. So I really struggled with the figuring out what lighting to put in because I didn't want anything like super extravagant, like a huge crazy chandelier or anything, but I did want it to obviously look nice nonetheless. So that was also a little area that I kind of struggled in there. And then as far as figuring out, I struggled in general with like figuring out the flooring to put for the what is it called? The roofing, and then like also the patio slots and everything. I went back and forth multiple times with like the siding of the platforms and then also like the flooring of the platforms. I just couldn't decide on what looked the best. So I struggled with that one a little bit and spent probably far too long with it. And I still would say that like I'm not completely sold on what I picked, because I ended up, I think, going with one of the Spalde floorings. And you know, it wasn't perfect, but I felt like it was like the one that kind of had that like white look that I wanted, and that wasn't like, didn't have any sort of pattern or anything to it. So that's what I ended up going with. So it wasn't my absolute favorite, but it worked for what it was. And I also struggled so much with doing the landscaping, which I feel like should not have been as big of an issue. But the issue was just with the platforms. I kept on having to lower it and place down the different bushes and shrubs and whatnot I wanted, because it just kept on raising it up so that it was matching the flooring of the inside of the house. And so it was such a struggle. And all I was trying to do was pretty much copy and go off of a mix of what's going on in the house next to it, so it like makes sense next to it, but also with what is going on in the Newcrest neighborhood with the kind of debug landscaping that it's doing there. And of course, like I said, I just struggled so much with the platforms. I don't know. I don't know why I didn't just wait until I was completely done figuring out the landscaping. I guess because part of it was because I did want to see how it looked with the raised platform. So that was just a bit of a struggle for me, to the point where I kind of gave up for a minute and decided to come back to it later. And now I feel like just seeing it kind of reminded me of it. I feel like now, just like how I feel like having a fire alarm is kind of essential to any build, now I feel like I have to always put in a alarm system in the builds now, because I personally so far have not encountered any burglars in my games, but I also haven't been playing the actual game that much. But I know my sister, she told me that she started playing Sims a little bit more again, and she was talking about how she encountered burglars and they stole some stuff from her, and even though the police caught the burglar, they didn't really do anything, didn't get any money back or anything with it. So I will consider myself very lucky and fortunate that I have not encountered any burglars. But I'm just going through and adding in little bits and pieces of decor bits and bobs, and I try to always incorporate some sort of activity, especially if it's like a skilled activity in my game, or not in my game, in my builds. But I really struggled with what activity to add to this. I thought about doing the yoga mat or something, but I just, obviously, unfortunately, even though in the catalog it's nice and rolled up and everything, it's not that way when you put it in the game. So I just decided to put in a little knitting basket with the build, just to kind of fill in the space and allow for some sort of learning activity. So whoever lives here may or may not be a little knitter, or maybe they're just trying to take up new hobbies. I don't know. You can decide. And then at the very end of this build, because I just hated that it was just such a stark white build and there was no color or anything to it, I did add in a little bit of color here on the side and towards the back, and then that little area in the front, just to kind of give it a little bit more character, because I just felt like it was pretty dull and boring and I just didn't love it. And then I also decided to add in a dark window in the back there, just to add in, again, a little bit of like contrast and color, because I kind of just did not like how plain and simple it was going or looking right there. So I made those little changes, which obviously I think makes the build look a little bit better, as far as not being so plain. And then I went in and just tried to change up the wallpaper on the inside as well a little bit. I feel like I just always use the same wallpaper and everything in all of my builds. I don't know. I don't do it intentionally. It just kind of happens that way. But I think it's also because I'm the type of person where I'd rather decorate with color than make the walls have a bunch of color. And or at least that's what I'm more comfortable with, I should say. So That's why I kind of always struggle with picking out wallpaper in my builds. But I'm just finishing up the landscaping here and changing it to pretty much look exactly like it does in the world. But that is pretty much all I did with this build. I honestly think it's one of my more favorite tiny homes that I've done. But I definitely think it's a nice change from the long builds that I have been doing. And I hope you guys enjoyed this build, and I will catch you guys again sometime soon. Maybe with another build, maybe with an actual Let's Play video. We shall see. But I will see you guys soon. Bye!